1,000 years before the events we have been speaking of, a very handsome man by the name of Absalom, son of King David, had a wicked heart, and he planned to take over his father's kingdom. So he enlisted the help of his father's closest friend by the name of Ahithophel, and Ahithophel becomes a traitor to his friend. And between Absalom and Ahithophel, the whole kingdom will ultimately rebel against their king, King David. And we see the king and a handful of followers taking the same route that the son of David, Jesus, would take 1,000 years later. They leave the city. They descend down the steep decline to Kedron, and they cross Kedron and come to Mount of Olives. They're barefoot, they're bareheaded, and they're weeping. And soon they're crossing Jordan, the river of death, because it was the border between the promised land and the wilderness. But then there's a great battle, and amazingly, the beautiful prince, the rebel son, is caught in branches of a tree. And Joab, David's general, finds him and stabs him to death. Then he's taken down and thrown into a pit, and stones cover his body. It's all very reminiscent of what would happen 1,000 years later, when the King of Glory would be fighting Satan and his wicked angels, who would use Judas to betray Christ to the cross. But on that cross, in a miniature Armageddon, as for 6 hours, Christ contended with the wicked who tempted him to leave the cross. On that cross, he overcomes the world, the flesh, and the devil. But see now what's happening in the garden. The crowd bursts through with their weapons and their lights. And Jesus confronts them and he says, "Whom seek ye?" And they say, "Jesus of Nazareth." He says, "I am he." At the words "I am," they all fall backwards to the ground. Jesus doesn't run away. He says, "If you seek me, let these go their way." And he motioned to his 11 disciples to disappear into the dark. And off they run. And Christ begins the Via Dolorosa, the way of sorrows, from Gethsemane to Calvary. More about that shortly.